So welcome everybody to the webinar today. If this is your first time, moments we'll introduce ourselves and also the company. If you are returning, thank you. We are looking to grow our community, and these webinars are one free, exciting way to do that. As you see, the topic today, which you would have recognized working on, is AI quick wins for 2026. We're certain this is a hot topic because despite any debate, discussion last year, let's say, this year, a lot more minds are on how do we get started or how do we gather more momentum. And we will talk today about quick wins truly, things that are low cost, low risk, high impact, and that will actually help you just get going with your teams in very useful ways. So I'm Matt Dunphy. I'm a lead consultant in learning and development with Get Savvy. I'm joined as ever by my colleague, Alan Reid. Do you want to say hello, Alan, and introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. Alan Reid, really delighted to be tackling the topic today. It really is a hot topic because I think what we're seeing now is organizations going from a lot of talk and a lot of thinking about AI to actually getting on with it. So I'm delighted to be helping steer the conversation so that people can start getting some transformational benefits out of AI tools.
Brilliant, Alan. Thank you. So Alan and I will share this session, and what I would say is I'll talk about housekeeping in a moment. It's more conversational today. We're going to cover some key topics around quick wins, as well as a couple of items we can share up front. But we do, as I say at the start, want your interaction, so please do use chat. A couple of other things. We are recording this session. There's no need for you to write furious notes. You have access to this afterwards. You also have access to two things. We offer a 50% discount on our own e-learning course, which covers technology change projects for business people or for non-project managers. Really good offer there. It's a jam-packed course if you've not seen it before, and that's free as a delegate of this webinar. The other thing, in more focus today, is we are going to be offering you an AI starter pack for free as a delegate of the webinar. This has got a lot of brilliant information in it about how you get started, including examples of quick wins, and actually how you start to pilot your use. So we'll cover that during the webinar, but just to say both of those things are on offer for free or at a discount rate as part of joining us. Alan, do you want to take us through kind of who we are and some recent highlights around our services?
Sure, just really briefly. So as well as our work around AI and CRM and digital engagement, which we do an awful lot of, Get Savvy has a real specialization in learning management as well, which is a little bit of a neglected niche in the membership world. So we do everything from help people steer what learning management should look like and agree how much money to spend and what resonates best with members and other stakeholders, all the way through to creating a learning management platform with you and developing learning content and that using AI tools typically for that. So the entire journey. We're 100% platform independent. We work across every platform that's out there. And we do an awful lot of just helping people to assess what good looks like and how to get there. So let's have a conversation about that if it's helpful. So moving on from there, a lot of projects we're doing at the moment are really about how to get people going on AI, because there's been a lot of blah blah since 2022. But what people have also recognized is that this is a huge capacity revolution. There are things that nonprofits have been wanting to do for decades, but just haven't had the headcount to do it. So to be ultra personalized, to provide great services instantly to members and other stakeholders. So our roadmap service is a quick, low cost, I know that's a relative term, project that essentially establishes what you need to do, establishes must do things like governance and entries for the staff handbook and how to manage staff change, but then goes through very rapidly strategy of how to embrace change, the kind of processes that lend themselves most effectively to AI-driven tools, and then actually getting on with it, getting on with your first pilots, getting on with the first changes on the ground. So we found those projects to be tremendously successful because it goes from being a black box of what is this whole stuff and how do I go about it and how much does it cost, through to actually doing it, having that clarity in front of the whole organization. So looking forward to talking more about that as we go. So just really briefly, we do offer all of the services all of the way through across learning management, but we also do an awful lot of design of content, and that can be organizations that have, for instance, a year's back catalogue of webinars. We turn that into courses, or we turn that into dynamic content that's relevant to your members, relevant to your stakeholders, and really kind of refreshes all of that content. Other organizations we work with have thousands of PDFs and white papers or in-person delivered course content, and we turn that into on-demand AI supported personalized courses that your members start using and when they and which they'd forgotten about in the past. So just to say, all of our services are 100% independent of any technology. So no matter what your current situation is, if you're already using a learning management system or you're just thinking about it, we're able to assist on the basis of what's in your interests, what's the best use of your money.
Thank you, Alan. That's really a great overview of our services. And as ever, we offer these webinars for free, and lots of free advice and interaction here. If you do have a burning platform right now or a real need that you're discussing with your leadership team or as a leader, please do get in touch. So let's get down to things. In terms of agenda, we do want this to be more conversation driven, and that's going to be a sort of a running theme for us this year. So in a moment, I'll share a couple of headline stats that are out there about AI readiness, and also some of our own view on quick wins, easy use cases for AI in both membership organizations, nonprofits, charities. And then we'll get into three core conversation topics, which I'll cover when we get there, but just ways for us to break out and discuss how we get going, how we gather momentum, how we overleap these hurdles that are around AI adoption. We'll probably take your interactions as we go through, and if there's any powerful questions that you've shared with us, we'll aim to cover those at the end as well. So, as an introduction, I mean, we are talking about current state of organizations in the nonprofit sector in the UK, AI readiness, and momentum, really. So I think it was something we were very keen to share around just some stats that we've collected ourselves and also that are out there at the moment. I'm just going to make sure my slide deck moves as it should. Just bear with me one moment. I might relaunch it just so that you can see that properly. There we go. Apologies all. This is always part of what happens live. So I'll just build the slide I'm going to talk about and then reshare it now, Alan. Okay, so hopefully just to check, Alan, everyone can see that on screen.
Yeah, that's come through.
Perfect. So to resume, apologies all, we have delivered a research study last year, which really does focus on tech trends in the nonprofit sector in the UK and AI readiness and themes. So what we found at the time of the study, and we'll look at this both ways, is at that time, 20% of organizations were actively adopting AI tools, starting to use AI in their processes. The flip of that, which is more positive, is 80% were discussing, debating, grappling with how they would adopt AI just without having made that step towards action. We took a poll at a webinar last year in November, which is later on by about 6 months to basically ask the same question. And what we found then is the dial had shifted towards 30%. So 30% of organizations actively using, 70% still in the space of discussion, debate, consideration. And we also shared last year some very good reasons why that is around ethical concerns, reputation, and just technically being able to start. To put that in context, we also looked this month at a study last year from Ernst & Young around broad use of AI in all organizations. So this is global. And as you see there, the kind of dial moved last year towards sort of 44% of all organizations actually using it in the professional setting. The point we want to make around these stats is, there's a lot of arbitrary use of AI actually going on in your organization. You may be doing it, others are doing it. What we're trying to aim for is quick wins. However, we're also aiming for deliberate use and implementation of AI. So the organization is driving the agenda for how we're adopting these tools and these ways of working. So it's not only important that we use it in the professional setting, but we use it in a deliberate way and that's structured. So we've got lots of advice coming up on that. And I think then just to sort of talk a little bit more about quick wins. So these are actually in our starter pack. So we have lots of good uses for AI. And I think the key point, I'll go through these, but to mention is that this isn't new. You know, there are areas of your organization where you want more automation, you want to alleviate the pressure on your teams and your users, you want more productivity and efficiency as leaders. And so our view, as you'll see in our starter pack, is this is all process driven. So where are the actual hotspots in your processes where you can actually just create more efficiency using AI? So I'll cover these briefly, but as I say, they are certainly in your starter pack you get after the session. So whether you're in a membership organization or you are in charity, you know, whether it refers to members, stakeholders, or donors, the key use cases, and some of these are actually common themes that we see, are both the ability to personalize your experience for your members or donors, and actually how to understand and segment your data so you can actually tailor various messages or activities for different people. This has gone on in membership organizations and charities for decades. What AI is adding is much more speed and accuracy in how we can actually personalize and automate some messages to our members, and also how we can actually view our data. Right? If we move on to events, then, you know, again, events management, and there are lots of actual tools out there that are including AI now. But I think the core things we want to focus on in terms of where are the quick wins are both in the creation of event content, and we'll probably take a balanced view of that. We don't want ChatGPT Copilot to write your whole event content, you know, with you doing nothing. We do understand that it's a great tool for starting content that you can then refine and personalize to your organization. In terms of tracking, I think, and particularly even we do this, you know, looking at the delegate experience, you know, how our bookings and our registrations are going, participation during events, feedback afterwards. You know, AI evidently is bringing in more power, more speed in how we do that. And again, the task for our teams doesn't disappear. You know, it just becomes much more about analyzing the insight we're getting from the data. If I move on then to marketing management, maybe somewhat similar. Again, I stress we don't want a machine literally doing your marketing strategy, but I think both in terms of content and actually understanding the markets that you are in, AI tools are really proving effective right now. And also then I think analyzing campaign performance. A lot of marketing tools are actually embedding AI now. So you'll start to see it just in what you're using around how your campaigns are successful or where you might need to actually make some adjustments. So that's sort of three of the areas, you know, the top six, just to continue, and then we'll get into conversation. Two other key areas for us in terms of, you know, quick wins for AI in your teams, low risk, high impact. We've got data and reporting. This is a huge area. Obviously, AI relies heavily on your data. We'll talk about how in a moment. But there are two key areas. AI is very effective at actually identifying, making, or suggesting corrections in your data quality. So that's always been an onerous task that we put upon many people in our organizations. AI is helping us actually to eradicate that, I would say, with our checks and balances. The other area then is a huge thing I think we will definitely focus on around natural language queries. You know, asking human questions to our systems and getting insight back. You know, a lot of your core systems will start to be introducing this, like your CRM, but indeed ChatGPT does this. You know, you ask it a question, it returns you some really good insight around the data that it's mining. And then finally, a huge area for Get Savvy in terms of education management. There's so much we could discuss, even as quick wins in this area. But I think two things again, you know, we don't want your AI to actually do all of the idea generation. but AI is very good at creating a structure and a storyboard if you prompt it in the right way. It can give you starter content that then you can refine and personalize. And then one thing I find really powerful is AI is very good at understanding learner behaviors and kind of what's happening moment by moment with your learners inside your learning management system, for example. So giving these nudges, which before we might need to actually structure and write um, at different stages of our learning, this is becoming a lot more flexible. So those are the quick wins, and they're in your starter packs. And probably many of the organizations we are talking to are actually starting to experiment here, if not more advanced. And so I think what we're going to do is we will move over to our conversation. And just to give you a bit of an explanation about this, it's three key topics that Alan and I will discuss. We want to run a quick poll at the beginning of each topic just to get a measure of where the whole group is at today. And then Alan will drop a key question into the chat. And we do really want to hear what's on your mind, what your thoughts are. Great way for us to get more interaction. And also we can start to use that for each of the conversation topics. So the first one we're going to cover, which again is a theme in our service that we provide, is around pilots. You know, how can we conduct safe internal pilots that don't actually require this transformational, tech or data project? How could you get going in a 30-day timeline? So I think, Alan, you're going to share the first poll just to get a sense of people's view of pilots inside their organizations. And I think if everybody would willingly sort of participate, this is just for our insight today. And then, Alan, let me know when we've hit critical mass and we'll have a look at the results. So I don't know if that's me, but I'm not sure I'm hearing you, Alan, just at your side, just to check.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this is
Ah,
just
there we
you evaluating how good your own organization is at running pilots. So you want to do some kind of change. Here. Let's have a let's do a controlled test of it, and then grow it from there. How good do you feel your own organization is? So I'm just going to give it a couple more seconds, and then I'm
Yeah.
going to share the results on there. And if I share, Matt, I'm interested in your comments on the results, if I may.
Yes, and I think as you do that, Alan will also prep this other question because we do want to hear your commentary around this because it adds some rich color to what we're seeing. So if we think about pilots, again, what I'm looking at here is the central stat around 61%. That's quite high, actually. So a lot of the organizations you're saying, right, we're good at pilots, um, but yes, we you do usually create a project. So I think that's very natural. It feels safer to structure a project, to get it to budgeted and approved, resourced. You know, we are heavily experienced in helping clients with that. I think there is a beauty, and we'll talk about this in the conversation, to the flexibility that a pilot gives you when you mobilize quite quickly and you actually get into things. The other thing is your users love this. They love the empowerment that it offers. I'm just going to have a quick look at the other areas. I think I must probably say the second stat is around a further 28% saying we're good at this, but we could be braver. And I think for me, if we view this through the lens of culture, it probably is doing things like asking bolder questions of the people involved in the pilot, expecting a quick, effective result without putting too much pressure on something that's experimentation, and actually probably handing over more delegated power during the pilot to the people involved. So I'll pause there. Alan, maybe if you set the question into chat, let's just have a little bit of a commentary from you on what you're hearing and seeing in there, what we can use in the conversation.
Right. I've dropped the question into the chat. And the question really is, why do you think your organization is good or bad at running pilots? So really welcome anyone's comments on that. Essentially, what we are finding, we're doing AI starter projects with a number of organizations. I'm finding that there are two main elements to a really successful pilot and introducing AI into an organization. So element number one of getting it working and making it successful is a rapid exercise with the management team. And when I say rapid, I mean rapid. We're not disappearing to Glen Eagles for a weekend on a golfing retreat. We're doing some critical meetings around what the roadmap looks like, what the options are for improvement, particular use cases around the organization, how much money is required, how best to integrate and use AI tools to get the best data, to get the best service, to get the best online experience for people. And then essentially with that clarity, you then pick some use cases. And this is what then happens nearly in parallel, is that you get on with the second part, which is develop your initial use cases. So we've had the reality is, as nonprofits, the fact is that virtually everything the nonprofits on this webinar do lends itself really well to automation and workflow. And that's been true for the last 30 years. What AI does is it makes it easier and cheaper to automate and put in workflow and more sophisticated rule-based behaviors that you're in control of than it ever was before. So what we've had is organizations that pick, for instance, their events management process. We really want to have people getting this instantaneous response. We want reminders. We want post-event surveys that we've never been able to quite afford before. Others have taken their debt collection process or membership renewals process, where people who should have paid by now and haven't, and managing that whole reminders and chasing and deprecating their benefits and so on. And we've done an AI pilot around that. We prefer to take a string of related processes and do it that way. A final really common example is around data access. People are still in 2026 using disconnected systems where the data isn't very well related. AI tools now make it easier to turn that into management information, business intelligence, because it can connect more easily than before. It can interpret more easily than before. So it's now possible to create really sophisticated business intelligence dashboards, reporting, and response data in a much cheaper way than it has been before. So it really is those two things in parallel: clarity around roadmap and costs and what to do first, with and what the whole journey looks like with the management team. That could be done in no time. And then getting on with some pilot processes and having it work on the ground to give people confidence and excitement, if you like, about the whole AI process.
So thank you, Alan. And I will say, if anyone really wants to comment on current status of pilots in their organization, what they're finding challenging, maybe share some best practice, definitely use the chat and we'll pick that up as we go in this section. So I think, Alan, thank you. That's a really good overview of kind of what we're seeing around the best places, the quick win areas. I suppose let's sort of roll it back and up a little bit. In your experience, or for the advice for the delegates, what makes a perfect pilot, no matter what you're piloting in an organization?
I think for the management team, it's getting that increase in capacity in the organization as part of the pilot. So it's not all just talk. It's essentially that there are some changes on the ground, and at the same time, they understand what can be done for the whole year. So you do something in month one, and there are benefits. The organization is already seeing a greater use of automation, workflow, personalization. But at the same time, they've got clarity for the rest of the year, which allows them to manage and plan resources for the whole organization. In terms of resources, by the way, in loads and loads of projects now, we've never seen a single organization saying, oh, we're going to cut headcount. That's not what the resourcing challenges are or the opportunities are. It's always, we are going to do more for our supporters, for our members with the existing headcount. We're going to do more on social media, more on personalization, more on content, and we're going to increase the value of the relationship for them. And knowing what the AI roadmap looks like for the next year allows the senior management team to actually get on with that and to get more ambitious about meeting their organizational goals.
So I think what I'm hearing in there is actually, yeah, whether it's financial or otherwise, it is outcome driven. And we
Yes,
want to
very
say
much.
the pilot has actually, achieved a level of use. We're using something where we weren't using it before, or perhaps we've taken a step forward in our thinking about how we adopt something, say, within a roadmap. And I do like the idea of you're basically saying the pilot should generate value. A lot of myth and a lot of suspicion around AI is what for jobs. How will
Exactly.
this relate to jobs in the future, the way roles change, people losing out. I think you're right. It's about actually saying, well, in a way, if we go back to what I was saying at the beginning, we have a job to do to automate and improve our processes. We always have. That's much more about redirecting resource to insight gathering or working with members or donors directly rather than losing conversation.
Exactly that. And just really a few seconds. So we're going back to your poll, which is showing that half of your staff are already using AI. They're using ChatGPT and other tools, but they're using it, just individually in a disconnected way. And it's almost a manual use of AI, and then copying and pasting things into your main tools. And it's going from a position where that's where you are now, and AI looks like a black box of confusion and not knowing quite how to get on with it, to a position where people are still using those tools, but they're using them in a way that flows into their processes. They're using it in a planned and governed way where there's controls, and you're able then to build it into your delivery, so you can just deliver an awful lot more than you are now without any of the downsides. Or there have been some unfortunate mistakes made on AI projects where people have just rushed into things, or just gone to Zapier and started doing things. So that initial part with the senior management team and getting clarity and setting governance around it, which can be done incredibly rapidly, is important. And we're finding that's what makes the difference on a great pilot.
Yes, so a bit of kind of leadership management guidance and steering without being too involved. I'm a big believer in the users solving problems and bringing them back. But I agree as well about pilot success. It's a bit doomy, but I was reading something from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. They've done a study last year saying almost 95% of AI pilots are not returning value. So I think as
Yes.
well as us knowing how do we implement them, there is that focus on how do we actually do something that changes the situation for an organization.
Great.
I'm going to start to move towards the second topic, and I'm really interested to get more views from the group. But just before I do, let's tackle very quickly what the poll is suggesting. So let's say if you're an organization in our group that is better at project management than pilots, they're more comfortable in that situation, or they just need to be bolder in how they run their pilots. Alan, what do you think are the kind of key tips we'd hand out in both of those places?
I agree with the planned boldness, if you like, cautiously executed boldness, whatever
Yes.
tautology that you need. So once people understand that the kind of understanding the roadmap, the budgeting side can be done really, really fast. And of course, it's always contextual. What software are you using? Is it something really old that's quite hard to integrate to? Well, AI is quite good at attaching and making the best of those situations. Or are you using Salesforce or Dynamics, which have really pretty good AI tools built into them? And then establishing the organization and people change side of it. Some colleagues are just not well adapted to creating their own rules or defining their own rules for AI, and others, will grab it and run. We call it the Excel pivot tables mentality. If you're the kind of person who will do an Excel pivot table, then you're probably going to find AI really easy to control and manage. So it's those elements we find really make the difference of it. So yeah, planned boldness.
Yes, I like that. It does offer that level of control and then releasing that control into the experiment. And I do agree on finding your champions, finding people who would just really be comfortable in their skin in this sort of world of having a problem, not yet really having a solution at all. Okay, so we're going to move on to topic two. And again, really encourage if you're out there and you've got a strong thought about this, please let us know. So this is crucial, I think, to AI. We're hearing it a lot right now. So probably in the sector, well, sectors, memberships and charities, where we've gone after affecting a level of perfection with data or needing to get our quality stats really into the 90, the 95 percentile. With AI, we're talking about what's good enough. What level does your data really need to be at in terms of population and quality in order to get some sense out of it and to use it effectively. So I think, Alan, again, if you release the poll on this topic, and we'll have a quick look at what people think there.
Great. So this one is essentially on a scale of 1 to 5, how good do you feel your organization's data is? So when you're looking at a supporter, you're looking at a member, do you see the entirety of your relationship with them? Do you have to go off somewhere else and get bits of it? Would it be easy for you to prove the value of your relationship with them back to them? Because you press a button and bang, there's everything you need to know. Do you have good oversight of campaigns, good oversight of fundraising or events, membership? Or is it still a bit of a struggle getting hold of the data? So we'll just give that a few more seconds. And I think we're good
Great.
to end that. And I'm going to share the results, Matt, for you to comment on, if you don't mind.
Yes, absolutely. I will literally lean in and have a good old look at this one. So again, if we think about our readiness or state here, good. So I'm seeing that pretty much 67%, so two-thirds, actually have active projects to improve the quality of their data. I mean, that's really encouraging to hear, whether you're sitting in the membership world, association, trade union, or charity. And I think probably our conversation can move on to, well, how do you add AI readiness, awareness, effectiveness onto your data improvement campaigns? And then I think just to say a little bit for the people who are at an earlier stage of development around that, so we've got 22% and 11%. So either in this space of, ouch, yeah, look, we know the effort to collect data in the right way, to consider what's appropriate to collect on the GDPR, to get it in order. We're struggling with that. Or I'm just having a quick look at what we've said. Yeah, we're getting by. We can use our data. We're getting some sense out of it, but quality is an issue. So look, I think Alan's going to drop another chat question, and please do share some broader views on this. But I think we are going to really emphasize in this conversation area good enough, because I think the good news is, because there's lots of sort of doomy news out there about AI's involvement in our lives, but AI is very forgiving of data quality issues. If you are aware of what you're dealing with, it can still generate brilliant insight despite the issues. So,
Fantastic.
Alan,
So we've got the, sorry, beg your pardon, Matt. I've just put the question in the chat, which is, what's the first thing that springs to mind when somebody talks about using your data and using it for AI as a base, or using it for anything else, and if it fills you with horror or otherwise? So please feel free to comment. Feel free to comment on that. We've had some interesting comments through.
yes, great.
Already, where a number of people are saying they find their data is not good enough, and they worry about getting bad information from it. What we're finding is that AI is an awful lot more tolerant of iffy data, and you can put guardrails in place, you can put things in place that will interpret a lot more. And whereas good old-fashioned SQL queries and BI reports would kind of fail if a person didn't have any of this element on their record, it would show unreliable information. With AI, you can build in guardrails so that you are getting the best out of whatever data you have, and it's also vastly cheaper than it used to be. We've had data warehouse projects going back many years, and BI and MI projects going back many years, which cost pretty much as a website or a CRM project. Now they cost a tiny fraction of that amount, and you're getting vastly better data out in the end. So that's really interesting to see. So let's carry on from there, Matt, if we could.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again for that overview, because I think you're responding to the challenge, which is, what is good enough, or where is AI filling gaps for us? Maybe if I pose the question again in line with our poll of, there is still poor data. There is still organizational data that you just feel like we must improve it, we must get better. So what do you think is the balance between knowing we still have those activities and knowing AI as you do, where we can sort of stop, whether it's at a percentage of quality or collection, or just with an understanding of our data that actually if we use things like natural language queries, we know we're getting the right sort of results despite some gaps, some challenges?
I think there's a possibility to do both. Improve your data and improve your integration, and then get some quick wins on AI while you're doing that. The fact is, we're working with a lot of organizations that just don't have the money to change their systems, and they don't have the money to spend a lot of time on big data improvement projects or big integration projects. They just don't. Now they might have over a multi-year process, but they can't wait to improve their services that long. They can't wait, because other people are upping their game with AI. And no matter where you are in the nonprofit world, you have a competitor. There are other people providing your training. There are other people fundraising to your supporter base. And if they're raising their game, then it becomes ever tougher. So what we're finding is this is part of that initial planning thing that we do really, really rapidly. This is, we're going to do this for the next year or so. You'll get this amount of benefit for that amount of money. Does that sound like it's worth it? Yes or no? But in parallel with that, maybe over a 2 and 3 year period, people are looking at really fundamental things that they can do to improve their data and integration and so on. And by the way, part of this as well, the AI quick wins thing that you're doing isn't a throwaway thing. It's actually improving your data whilst it's running. So it will continue. It's something that you invest in and then continue to improve after that as well.
Yes.
So really there is a significant net benefit whether you can afford to change your systems or not.
And I think I might use the 2/3 of our group who are sort of in this, stage of running improvement projects regularly. It's probably saying to give this clarity, and thank you, Alan. It's still a strategy to have high data quality and be compliant. It's still a working group and a set of processes to do that. But I love what you're saying there about actually, if we're playing the long game of improving our quality over time, various different methods, and that actually, if we're using things like natural language queries, there are quick wins there. We can see what results come back. We can actually analyze how accurate that seems or how close to truth we know it from other sources, like talking to our members or donors. And then we can actually plan action using that insight. I think the other thing I would say in this area is yeah, just keep checking. You can actually use pilots to do that, to check an area of accuracy and what insight you're actually gathering for leadership or for a particular new project, for example. So just keep validating. Be the
Absolutely.
arbitrator of your data. Okay, good. Any
Great.
further thoughts on that, Alan?
Just one. We had a really interesting use case a few days ago where after attaching AI so that much easier natural language querying, people typing in plain English to over their own data and getting the results. We had someone they'd noticed a problem, which was that people were starting to engage with their learning content, starting to take their courses, but they never renewed. They never renewed,
Mhm.
or this, most groups, and particularly students, who were, perennially broke and perennially willing to nick your digital assets for no money. They were asking the question, why aren't we getting anyone renewing here? And they just typed it in, what's going on? As into the AI, and the answer came back, with a series of supporting things, which is that this group was simply going on for the minimum period of time, downloading all of the digital assets, and then seeing they got no more value. And the solution to that was two things actually, with a little conversation. One, managing how you allow downloads, but two, recognizing that there's a kind of burden on you as a provider to keep refreshing your content. You can't just put stuff on there, leave it static for years at a time, and then expect people to keep coming back. Now, the positive news on that is that it's never been less expensive. It's so incredibly cheap now to do digital high quality content using AI based tools that actually dropping new content in every week is far easier than it's ever been before. But that was a really
Yes.
interesting use case of what allowing AI to see your data and to see the behavior of your members and pose a problem to see what the solution might be.
Yes, and I think we could continue this year, or in many settings, discussing the value of natural language queries. But I think you're right. As human beings, there's a more structured technical way to ask the system a set of questions and get accurate results back, particularly maybe if you've got some challenges around your data. But I think AI is sophisticated enough to take attitude. What is going wrong in this area? What's our top problem, with retention? It's starting to get that good in terms of how it actually responds in a human-like way. So let's talk about topic three then. I think again, these are all based around quick wins. I should say they're all in our starter pack. There are elements of you being able to run a pilot with a starter plan that we've put in there, or indeed being able to structure different things like how you continue to improve your data with AI. This one is on the theme of tools. So I suppose as Alan sets up the poll, just to frame this, we know there's a lot of arbitrary use of AI. We know we're personally using a lot of different tools. It is really about how the organization views that. What are easy plugins? What are conversations with your IT leaders or with the leadership overall? So thank you, Alan. I think we've got the new poll up, and we'll wait a couple of minutes for results on that one.
Great, great. And there's an entire ecosystem now of AI tools providers, and there are, and there are things with really low cost and even free entry points. I set up a free Zap, ages ago, so that our Eventbrite bookings send me an email and so on. All of those kind of things. People are getting into them, but there's an entire ecosystem of tools that are designed around integration, that are designed around personalization, that are designed around workflow and automation and data. So it's really how good is your organization at doing some research, getting some help, where a little bit of help from people like us, for instance, and then deploying those kind of tools. So I'm just going
Yes,
to end that poll and share the
thank you.
results back to you, Matt, if I may.
Great. So thank you all for responding to the polls. And I will say we'll share another chat question. Really great if you've got either a question or a viewpoint. So if I look at this particular topic, again, we've got a lot of people, just over half. So yeah, looking to rely on core systems and plug in add-ons. And actually, I would say it's not the right answer, but it's a very effective answer. I think a lot of the AI tools that are in the market, you should feel like they're easily added on to your core systems. And we'll touch on this lightly in this conversation area. Of course, you will start to see whether it's your CRM, your LMS, your marketing tool, you'll start to see AI embedded there, and various ways that it is appearing in core systems. And just to cover the others in our group, so we've got some people who are, yeah, not exploring add-on tools. There can be risk there, particularly if you talk to your IT team. They're not fond of having a plethora of different things that might cause security risks. So that's always a consideration. And yeah, mixed fortunes again. It's sort of saying, we have a habit or a culture of, if we did a scan of the organization, there's 100 apps out there, and IT is definitely concerned or wants to consolidate. So I suppose to give balance to this, there is always, what are the right tools? What's the right amount of tools to have across the organization versus what is just easy to plug in and useful for one team or useful in different areas. So, Alan, I think you've probably popped the last question for a few prompts from our group into the chat.
Yes, exactly. And that is, have you, this is for people to respond to, have you started the conversations in your organization about what AI features exist in any tools you're already using? So things like Microsoft Office, for instance, have transformational AI tools that there's 100 use cases, and in the interest of time, I won't go through them. We've run webinars on that. There are fantastic tools in Dynamics, fantastic tools in Salesforce, and of course the smaller providers out in the world are also partnering with AI specialists so that they can start offering AI tools to their customers. Maybe not built in quite the same way as the bigger boys or the bigger players, but making it as easy as possible to start taking advantage of those things. So really, are you looking out at that? Are you starting those conversations with a view to deploying them?
And I'll give a slight caveat. When we talk about low cost, low risk, high impact, we do know that there are technical changes your IT team, or if you get a third party to support you, are making, much more about bringing in agents, for example, and that actually can automate conversations with your members or donors, and things like the infrastructure around how you mine information using AI in your organization. So I think our focus has really been on things you can plug in and play. I think with that in mind, Alan, and looking at the poll, what do you think is the key kind of way to make the decision between, okay, in our team, in our organization, let's use that. It's got great productivity gains, or let's be more considerate. Let's think about how that might land in our core systems in future.
So there's a little bit of a balance. So we're working with organizations that have, I think the technical term is just a rat's nest of different tools for everything, and nothing's really talking to each other very well. So in that case, there isn't one of the tools within one of the big things that you can then use as your AI hub for everything else. So it then becomes one of the more common middleware tools that you're going to use. What we do try and recommend is where there are tools provided by the vendor, do look at those first. So rather than, we've always had the view going back 20 odd years, have as little software as you need, have as few vendors as you need, manage as few suppliers as you need, because you don't want to be arguing between suppliers or, having multiple contracts and relationships. So if it's already in your tool set or they're bringing it out, etc., start with that and do some really good research. Poke at it skeptically, politely but skeptically. How much of it is hot air and how much have they already done with other customers? Demand to talk to those other customers. But if that is not the case, and it's often not, then there's a good range of middleware tools. And what we say there is try and pick one that's going to work across as many of your different tools as possible. Try and have as few bits of software as possible, to say that again, and something that's going to live and grow with you over a period of time. So it's not a case of what we seek to avoid is having this particular thing is used for that particular thing is used for that, and you're creating this technical burden and debt, which the whole point of this is to get rid of that or to alleviate that.
Yes. I love that. And I think maybe to give some examples, I read in Time magazine over Christmas that there are almost 800 million weekly users of ChatGPT. I think, there's a lot of debate about how do we use that in organizations. There are more and more structured ways to adopt that if you want to. I'd probably say if you're a Microsoft user, as you say, Alan, you find your vendors are promoting Copilot a lot at various different stages of development of how Copilot is advancing alongside of the Microsoft tools. And then I think, my view of vendors as well is they tend to be quite app based. They've got their core modules and they themselves develop apps, including around AI. So I like that sort of being a bit more, you know, minded towards checking with the vendor first and then maybe experimenting with other things which might truly be an add-on for one team.
Yes, and great, and the middleware tools that are out there. So an awful lot of these projects are based on things like Copilot, are based on the Salesforce equivalents, and but also a lot of it is based on the OpenAI tool set, ChatGPT, and related. So when you get into the commercial use of those things, not just sitting in your browser typing stuff in, then there's an entire world of being able to integrate that into your tool set, create your own organizational GPTs, train it about your product set, your membership offerings, your supporter messaging, and then have it act, have it act in real time as you're carrying out processes. Of course, putting things like web chat and bots online that allow your members and supporters to ask things in natural language querying. It's so far past the Turing test now. Done well, it can really deliver a great service and alleviate the burden on internal staff. So yeah, it's almost there are too many. It's standing in front of the cereal section now and being spoiled for choice. And there's so many tools now. It's about finding that right one that you can really consolidate around, and that is going to grow with you.
Yes, and I think without just naming all the big players, I recognize that some smaller organizations are very Google based. So things in the
Mm-hmm.
Google workspace
Mm-hmm.
are really becoming way more sophisticated even than last year around AI and also Amazon Web Services. Maybe if you're more technically minded, I think certainly some of the things coming in around AWS are very worth looking at as part of your
Exactly.
platform strategy.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll ask one more question, then I'll move us towards the kind of final section and wrap. So, I've seen in the poll that you've got people just like, we're not very good at this at all. It's experimentation. I think some of that, as you've said earlier, is about results. So if we're looking at organizations on this call experimenting with the potential use of a tool, aside from all the things we've talked about around, well, rely on your core systems, what would you say are the key expectations for a pilot or an experiment around tools? What do you want to be finding out when you finish that kind of exercise?
I think there's some nuts and bolts elements we want to find out. Um, we want to provide the leadership team with clarity, decision support, and clarity. We do it really, really rapidly to say, look, here are the opportunities. Here's how you could change the business beneficially. You're not getting rid of anyone. You're just doing a load more. And you're giving people better tools. You're giving them tools so that they're doing less of the boring stuff and much more of the stuff that should be human curated, human guided. And here are the real opportunities around that. Here is how much it'll cost to do that. Here are the technical implications, the risks, and how those risks could be mitigated. And here are some really actionable templates and things like a governance pack, stuff you can put in the staff handbook, guidance you can provide to your staff, and what's realistic around your own bespoke technology set, because every technology set is bespoke, is different. So that kind of clarity is there. And then the second thing is getting a rapid agreement on what are we going to do first? What area is causing you the most pain? What area would benefit most from deploying some of this stuff? And we take a kind of don't believe us, let us show you. And we do this in the reason we're called Get Savvy is it's always about trying to empower the organization, get them savvy about this new area. So in effect, the organization can then take the baton from us if they need, and then do the next things themselves or have a light touch degree of support from us. But it's about empowering the organization to actually make the changes, to deploy these automations, these workflows, this better content, this higher volume than they were doing before. So at the end of the pilot, people should actually see changes on the ground, but have clarity of what the next year looks like as well.
Great. And I think I'll kind of summarize there, whether it is investigating your data, investigating a tool, investigating a process area in your core systems, the idea of good management, leadership, buy-in, direction, running a pilot, running some exercises, and getting some end goals and some outcomes, I think has really been a strong theme through this webinar. So thank you, and thank you to anyone there asking questions, and for all of you for giving your views back in terms of our polls. So what I'm going to cover briefly now, and before we close, is just look a little bit of a look into our starter pack. You will get this for free today. I am biased, but I do think there's tons of information in there and guidance. You could literally use it. We've also got tools and templates in there. So we are giving this for free in the encouragement of more momentum. And actually, if you are still at a standing start, taking your first actions. So please do look to that. It's very valuable, and indeed give us your feedback on what you think. But it structures 5 organizational areas where you do need to get started and develop maturity. We've talked about that on previous webinars. We've got some useful use cases in there, which I covered at the top of this session, and process areas where you can focus. And we've got templates and checklists as well. So just how do we actually work through our action plan and know we are making progress and actually reporting on that progress to our leadership team. So that's a bit of a look at the visuals. We always do color and high design. So all the various elements I've discussed, you can see. It's under 20 pages as well. And some of these things you can literally print or take out and start using. So we've made it practical for that reason. And I think just to reiterate what Alan said earlier, we do have a readiness service, which is a quick project. We recognize people want a rapid injection of support to get going and gather momentum. It is across all of these areas, as Alan mentioned, pretty top to bottom or 360 view of how you adopt AI and you start developing a sophistication. So please do get in touch if you like the starter pack or you have that challenge right now. You've got some budget and you want to get going. We are definitely here to help. And I think, Alan, I'll just do a very quick check. Is there anything in terms of either pre-webinar or at the moment, any key questions that have come through that we could deal with just before we close?
Absolutely. We've had a couple of really, a number of really good questions through. So one is saying, one challenge is that we don't know what we don't know. What is the art of the possible? So difficult to know what even to ask for or research. And that's thank you very much for sharing that, because that's the position that an awful lot of people and organizations are in. And that's why we created the Rapid Get Started project. So that's where we're talking about clarity. We're talking about making sure people understand what the options are. This can be done, in no time at all. And making it real in terms of use cases, and this is where this would work, and this is how much this would cost with your provider
Yes.
or with these middleware tool providers, and so on. And this is what I would do in your position, so that you can see it on the ground. So that kind of clarity is really, really important. And thank you for sharing on that. So yes, please, Matt.
I was just going to say very briefly, because I think there is a maybe with the concern about getting started and gathering momentum and reporting on progress, that we lose the imagination. The art of the possible is still something you have space for. Use your pilots, use opening action around tool experiments to investigate the art of the possible. It doesn't have to
Absolutely.
be a kind of like, I always remember GDPR, a lot of that felt like technical delivery to get to a place of compliance. And it doesn't have to be just that. It can also be fun, exciting, experimental.
Fantastic. And then they agreed. And so then we got another question through.
Yep.
There's two actually that kind of go together. Let me do this. One person has said we tend to steer away from system specific AI tools just because of cost benefit questions. So system specific AI tools
Yeah.
might be things like Copilot. So that's a view from one person there. But a complementary question, if you like, is someone asking, so that tends towards more general, widely used middleware products. And then the complementary question is, somebody said, can we please explain what middleware tools are for the uninitiated? So in a very brief way, there's an entire industry that's sprung into being to recognize this problem, which is that, of course, everyone wants to get the capacity benefits, improvements of AI, but of course businesses and not just nonprofits are all using wildly different software. Some of this software is decades old and not great at talking to any other bits of software, but you still want the personalization. You still want. So what this middleware stuff is very good at is, for instance, you have something going on your website. Somebody might register, somebody might book on an event or post a question or what have you. And then that may or may not get reflected into your main fundraising or membership system and database. And it might be happening on events, etc. And what the middleware is very good at is allowing you to connect to things in all sorts of different ways, very low tech ways with file transfers, or very high, medium tech ways with integration tools. And then you can create very stepwise rules, a bit like you were telling a temp you just dragged in through the door. Okay, whenever you see this happening over there on that system, I want you to go and check something else in other systems about that person. And then depending on what
Yes.
you find, do that or that or that. And imagine this temp was really reliable at doing that, and you could instruct them very easily, and they could look into multiple different systems in order to do that. That's what the middleware is like. It's a lot like having a person who can do all of those things and follow instructions, sometimes quite complicated instructions, so that you can stop pretending you've got integrated stuff and you're doing all the typing behind the scenes manually, and you can put in genuine tools that are able to do.
Yes.
And this covers things like data retrieval and reporting, but also real-time personalization, services, responses, so that you're able essentially to put in things that used to cost hundreds of thousands of pounds to do, and you can do it at a fraction of the cost, pretty much no matter what your technology set is.
Yes. And I will simplify even further software, in the middle of your system that's helping fill gaps. I do love the temp analogy. or the agent analogy, doing things in the middle of your systems. Great. Thank you so much for that and for the question. I know, wherever we use technical terms, please do ask us for plain English. You always have a mind to that as well. So in terms of summary, very quickly, please do avail of the discount code for the course. Please use the starter pack and get in touch if you have a need. And I think we're actually going to share a very quick feedback form, I think now as I'm speaking, just so if you do need a conversation, we can get in touch. We do have lots of resources, so we're always happy to have a conversation or a consultation for free about our services. And just to say, we've got a nice, bright new thing coming up. We've got lunch and learns this year, so 30-minute sessions, really brief, demo based, discussing one challenge or opportunity and actually sharing some interaction. And basically, that is starting on February the 12th. So thank you so much for joining. I think, Alan, are you going to trigger the feedback form?
Yeah, the feedback form's up. So
well,
yes, please, if you can stand it, just 1 to 5, how relevant was it for you? And then I will share the results very quickly. So just people coming in, thank you so much. And so yeah, 5 being the most relevant on there. And that's really great results on there.
And
Good.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
was going to say thank you to all. I know it's always good for us to get feedback, especially at this point when you're nice and warm and you're not yet back into your day or your evening. So look, thank you everybody for joining us, and we will continue our topics this year on AI as well as other areas of learning and core technology themes. And please do join us. They are free, and we hope you find them useful. And there is always going to be assets that we'll share for free as well afterwards.
Great to see an awful lot of 4s and 5s on the relevance. So that's great.
Wonderful.
That's great feedback. Thanks so much for everybody. I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.
See you soon, everyone.